but sent back in by the Majors. And then we've got our first scrap of the season. Flick and Harrison.
And Harrison, the youngster, doing very well, feeding the left. Now he switches to right.
Now he'll try to do it blindfolded as Flick got his shirt up over him. But not bad by the rookie, because those were two big boys trading punches. Didn't see what started it, but there's the tail end.
I promise, I was at that game, and that fight was substantially more exciting than that television call makes it out to be. It's tough on radio to sort of make it clear how exciting a fight is when you're taking the television call. So I apologize for that, folks. But as always, a great job by Bill Nicholas and John Begg on the call of the Kingston Frontenacs home opener, which was last Friday against the St. Mike's Majors. And one man who certainly stood out because of that clip that we just played is Kingston Frontenacs defenseman, all the way back to 2008, their 12th round pick, made the team this year. Patrick Harrison joins us right now. A bit of a chuckle at that. But, Patrick, great to have you here on the program. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
So let me start off. I want to ask you about your path to this team. But first, that clip we just heard, the fight with Rob Flick of the Mississauga St. Mike's Majors. You could have picked someone else potentially because he's not bad at that. What stirred all that up for you?
Well, you know, I was just going back to the behind the net there to get the puck, and he happened just to be there, and a little bit of shoving, and then next thing you know, I asked him to go, and we went at it. I didn't know it was him, to tell you the truth, and then after, when I found out he was a fighter, thought I did pretty good for myself.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. Things started out pretty darn well. They say on the clip, I didn't include it there, but the end a little bit tougher for you. But lessons learned, right? For your first fight, you weren't expecting too much, right?
Oh, yeah, I know. That was my first OHL fight. You know, I've had some in the past in junior A and stuff, but that was quite a fun time, you know. It was good start to it, and you know, I think it worked out well.
So what did the guys tell you about Flick when you got back to the bench? I mean, this is a guy who had like 15 fights last year, I think, and 3 of them were against Kingston too, so some of your teammates probably were pretty familiar with him.
Oh yeah, well, you know, they were all excited for me. Like I said, it was a good start, and I didn't know it was him. You know, I heard everyone was like, oh yeah, this big fighter and everything, but you know, I thought I held my own there and made it happen.
Yeah, no, not bad at all. But let me rewind with you, Patrick, because before even getting into this home opener, you were drafted by Kingston 2 years ago, as we mentioned, in the 12th round. And this is why I can't believe, and just to editorialize for a second, that the media hasn't picked up on this, because nobody's made this team from that low of a draft selection in a really long time. The lowest was Stephen Franchella, who was a 10th round pick a few years ago. The records only go back about 7 years, but it's quite an accomplishment. Can you rewind for us back to when you were first drafted by Kingston and what you remember of your draft day?
Well, you know, I was on the draft day. I thought I was going to go a little higher than I did. You know, I thought to myself, you know, there's always a chance that I could get in the team. But you know, there was a lot of other skilled defense that were drafted ahead of me. You know, like Morton Gabranson. They were both signed before the camp even started. So, you know, it was hard for me to go in that first year, and you know, I gave it my all. But you know, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be making the team that year because they already had a full lineup plus 2 16-year-old defense signed. So, you know, I decided to, you know, I worked my hardest that year, and, you know, there was a couple other teams interested, and, like, the V's there at one point, you know, they asked me to maybe stay, but I was also, of course, with the team back in the Central Junior A League in Ottawa, so that was not in the running to happen there, but, you know, I worked hard as I could, and, you know, they were happy with the camp I had, but, you know, I couldn't get the opportunity there that year. But, you know, when I came back the next year, you know, ready to go again. But, you know, they had another 16-year-old defense ahead of me. And, you know, I went back to Junior A, and I worked my hardest there and had a good year. I started off in Hawkesbury, and then I got traded to Ottawa, and I had a great finish there, you know, in the postseason. And I decided to come back to camp again, you know, give it one more shot and see what happened. And, you know, good things worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing on the draft, though. Had you known going into it that you were on Kingston's radar? Had they been in contact with you?
Yeah, they had called me before the draft, maybe a week before, and said, you know, I was on the radar and stuff, and, you know, possibility of getting drafted along with a couple other teams.
So you sort of mentioned just the journey you go through playing Junior B your first year, up to Tier 1 Junior A the next year, and then up to Major Junior this year. It's obviously just a huge path for you to go through. Knowing that you were selected pretty late in the draft, what kept you going? What kept the optimism there that you would eventually make this team?
Well, you know, growing up, I always watched the 67s go and play there, and, you know, I always had that drive to go play in the OHL, you know, and I don't know, I was pretty excited when I got drafted. you know, there's that opportunity. It's there. I just got to work for it. You know, so I kept going, and there was always that debate if I wanted to stay, even go to camp the next year, or if I wanted to keep going, play in the Central League and go to get a scholarship. But I kept saying, you know, like I've always wanted to play in the OHL. It's fun. There's more coverage there for you know, NHL and stuff, and you know, school's not my strongest asset, so I figured might as well go for the hockey.
Yeah, no, not bad at all, obviously. But when you look at the last 2 years, what did you learn the most in those other leagues you played in? What did you develop the most? What's really the biggest difference between you as a player going into camp this past year and you when you were drafted by Kingston?
Well, I think the first year it was a stepping stone, you know. Like it was a little bit rough at the beginning to know what team I was going to play on because I was all over the place. But as I, you know, junior B, it was a really good stepping stone. I had a great coach, you know. He treated me well. As a 16-year-old there, had tons of playing time, you know. It was a good confidence boost for me. Like he had me on the power play, and I worked, got lots of points there. I finished with 50 points, you know, rookie of the year there in junior B. It worked out good. It's, you know, and then after that, you know, I ended the year with Cornwall Colts. It was a fun time, you know. Again, I was in there with confidence, boosted me up, and then you know, I was ready to go to camp next year, and you know, and something didn't happen there. You know, I wasn't quite ready yet, and you know, and then playing last year in Junior A there, it really helped me out, you know, like coach in Ottawa, you know, had lots of time there, power play, penalty kill. I think it's just big confidence boost there, and, you know, like strength-wise, you know, training over the summers, kept working hard, you know, and it finally got me here.
Patrick Harrison of the Kingston Frontenacs joins us here on Offsides on CFRC 101.9 in Kingston. So you head into camp this year, and if there was one point where they finally mentioned you in the media, and I got to bring it up, you did fight Steve Brook in training camp. Was that planned ahead of time?
Well, it wasn't planned between us or anything. You know, I've been told by some people, you know, like that I had to fight. You know, maybe it might help me get in there. You know, show my tough side, physical side. You know, and it worked. I wanted to show, you know, I had grit and I wanted to play there, and you know, that could be that defenseman that's tough and is not afraid to drop the gloves, and he's not worried about you know, other players or getting hit, and you know, I can hold my own. I can help my team. You know, that extra little thing to get me on the team.
So what was the moment when you were told that you would definitely be on the team this year? Were you called into the GM's office? How did it all sort of become final for you?
Well, it was on the, you know, the first day of cuts there when they call everyone up in the room, you know, like I had been there the last 2 years. So I was thinking to myself, oh, here we go again. But, you know, I was called up first, actually. We were all eating upstairs, and I was called up and get in the room and, you know, not knowing what to expect. But, you know, I was kind of curious what they were going to say. And they asked me, you know, do you want to stay? And I was like, what? Yeah, so they asked me to stay and sign, and I said, well, yeah, I'm ready to go. Should be fun. So
you actually went in there not expecting necessarily that you would make the team that year?
No, I wasn't. Didn't see it at all. Actually, I just worked my heart off, and hopefully that, you know, hearing good things happen, and you know what, it did.
So certainly a huge pleasant surprise. Who was the first person you told that you'd made the team?
I called my dad right away, and he was pretty. He was in the parking lot because he had my stuff already in the car, ready to go home. But then I told him, like, can I have my stuff back? They want me to stay. So he was pretty happy.
No, it's fantastic. But as we look at that side of the game that you tried to emphasize there, the toughness, the willingness to fight and everything, when you look back to your time, and just to remind folks, you played last year with the Ottawa Junior Senators of what's now the Tier 1 Central Hockey League, what was then the Central Junior Hockey League, and what was before then the Central Junior A Hockey League. I think I've got all the names of that league out there now. Was that ever an element to your game back then? Because, of course, when you drop the gloves in that league, you're gone for the game. Were you able to do that as much back then?
Well, you know, going back to Junior B, I'd had a couple fights there too as a 16-year-old, and you know, and then Junior A, I think twice last year I dropped the gloves, and it wasn't really an element. You know, I liked doing it. It was a little bit of fun. You know, if there was ever any, you know, problems I had with another guy, you know, then I would go, and that's the case. It happened last year. You know, last year I even had a broken jaw and I was fighting, so it was a little bit of fun. You know, it just happened. You know, and wasn't really like a thing that was in my game back then. You know, I was more of an offensive player and more of a team player, like role player kind of thing. But you know, I'm not scared to do it, and it was fun. So
where do you get enough practice that you're able to take on a heavyweight like Flick in that Mississauga game?
I don't know. I guess I don't really have practice. You know, I've told just, you know, like my dad tells me a couple times watching me. You know, I didn't do so good when I was 16, but you know, he told me, he's like, you know, if you're gonna go, you know, throw punches, and usually the first person that throws a punch can usually come out good, and that's what I do. I just go out and throw.